keeping you up to speed on all your Colorado teams. It's time for Coffee Break.
Hello and welcome into Coffee Break. It is Tuesday, which means I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than NFL insider to the stars, James Palmer. James, how are you, man?
To the stars. Let's go.
Let's
Yeah,
go, right?
I'm
Come on. You
great.
got to have, intro.
I'm great. I did a real, I get to pick whatever game. I'm lucky enough to pick whatever game I want to go to each week. And I kind of wanted to stay here. I think this was like the biggest game that we've had in Denver in some time. But then things kind of blew up in Philadelphia in the middle of a 9-game win streak, and they were playing Russell Wilson and the Steelers, and I was like, I should probably go to that game. So it made me, the reason I brought up, as you said, insider to the stars. I saw the stars at the game. I met Pete Davidson at the game.
Wow.
He was there hanging outside the Eagles locker room. Bradley Cooper was there. B. Coops, Philadelphia native. So it's interesting. Pete Davidson's a big Giants fan. But
He is a big Giants fan.
He's been hanging out with the guys on the Eagles a lot lately, I'm told.
What insanely out of his league starlet is Pete Davidson trotting around these days? That's kind of like, speaking of to the stars.
Yeah, I was looking around. I was like, who's he with? And he was solo. He was in like a big black like North Face jacket with a black ski hat on, in his hands in his pockets. And he was just kind of leaning against the wall right outside the Eagles locker room after they had closed. He was probably going to talk to a couple guys or hang out with a couple guys. He's been hanging out with like Mailata and the Kelsey boys, I think, a little bit, and those guys. So he's enjoyed the Eagles, and I was like, who's he with? Who's nobody? He was solo. Yeah.
Well, before we get into some of the local storylines and other NFL tidbits that we've got here, why don't you give me your takeaways from the game that you saw in person? Because the Broncos, as it sits right now, could be looking forward to a playoff matchup with the Steelers and a little 3-6 action there. And the Eagles, who we've talked about plenty on this show, and you and I have had plenty of conversations about them. I've been of the opinion that I think maybe they're a little.
You still think they're overrated, Richie?
I think so.
They're the best team in football right now.
Okay. Well, I don't.
And it's mainly because Detroit's been just destroyed by injuries.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think
Mahomes
there's some outside
is hobbling around, but let's all not fall for it again. He'll be fine.
So, but I was critical of Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's a very good passer, and I think that the tush push and Saquon Barkley are kind of inflating him in his status as a quarterback a little bit. But the Eagles' passing game looked all right, including the connection between frenemies A.J. Brown and Jalen. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, over 100 yards for Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, a touchdown for each of them. I think what they showed, and we'll try to get to Broncos quickly, guys, so anybody listening where this is an Eagles show, I'll just say this. What they showed is they can beat you two ways. It was single high safety pretty much the whole game. The Steelers were like, we're going to stop Saquon, and they were like, fine, we'll take what you give us. And they just continuously just threw the ball successfully, didn't take a bunch of shots, just kind of worked it down the field. They have a great offensive line. Defense has been very good. On the other side, where I would say Broncos fans are more interested with the Steelers, I don't know, Richie. I think the wrong offense was getting questioned coming into that game, if that makes sense. There were a lot of questions going, can this Eagles offense throw the football? They're in a 9-game win streak, but is it all Saquon Barkley? And they're just running the ball well. And can they survive in the playoffs playing that way? I'm curious if the Steelers can survive in the playoffs playing the way they're playing. It's an offense that's based off of the run that can't run the football right now.
Yeah.
And we saw when George Pickens is not out there, there's no fear in the passing game at all. I mean, if you talk to people around the league, they'll tell you talent-wise, George Pickens is one of the most talented players at the receiver position in the NFL. There's a lot of other things that go into it that make George a bit of an interesting character.
Because if you disagree, he'll fight you.
Yes, it's a trip for the coaching staff, to my understanding, to handle George. But with him off the field, talking to Eagles people on the defensive side of the ball, they were not concerned about Russ at all in that game. They're like, it's a touchdown, check down situation. If we stop the run and our defensive line can stop the run, our corners can stay with these receivers. I mean, you look at Austin, you look at Mike Williams. I mean, I think Freiermuth's a good player at the tight end spot. But the Eagles didn't have any fear of Russell Wilson at all. And the red zone offense hasn't been great for Pittsburgh. I mean, they couldn't move the ball at all against Philadelphia. I think it's going to be very telling when they play Baltimore this week. Because I think them and the Ravens are going in opposite directions, and the Ravens could overtake the division. And I don't want to say Broncos fans could be kind of smiling, going like maybe Russ is coming back to earth a little bit. But the way it was going, Richie, did you think it was really sustainable? There were a lot of moon balls that were just kind of just coming down into the right guy's arms.
Oh, Muth made some unbelievable catches. George Pickens had some acrobatic things.
Yeah.
But then
I think he played well. Like, Russ has played well. But, like, I think the Steelers might be coming back to earth a little bit offensively, and I'd be curious to see how much Justin Fields has used over these last couple of weeks.
I don't know if you can hear it from your home setup there, but I can hear faintly in the distance a lot of snickering from Broncos country going on as you complete that sentence. Because I agree with you. I think that there may be a little bit of, I don't want to say like falling off a cliff, but like regression more toward a mean where things were kind of breaking your way and you made the change mid-season. So defenses had to adjust to that on the fly week to week to week. And the NFL does catch up eventually. So we'll see as it stands right now. That looks like it could be a possibility. James, do you think the AFC playoff picture, the seeding as it stands now, is that set in stone, you think? There's not a lot of there's some potential movement, but almost all the teams have a north of 90% probability of making the playoffs. And it doesn't seem like divisionally there's a lot of movement that can be made.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens could win the division they could win the North over Pittsburgh, right? That's in play for sure. And outside of that, I mean, Houston can change their seeding a little bit, right? But they won the division, so like they're going to be home. They could be changing their opponent, right? I think that could happen. But yeah, I think we kind of know who's essentially in. But there could be just a couple of turns. I mean, honestly, we're watching the Mahomes ankle to find out if we're going to be having the AFC run through Arrowhead once again, or Orchard Park. And so it seems like, I mean, I haven't talked to a bunch of people since Sunday there, but he's going to practice today and see how it looks. And they don't want to push it. I mean, obviously they got 2 games in 5 days, but they really want that 1 seed so he can rest it.
Sure.
And so Pittsburgh might have a lot to play for on that Christmas Day game, though. So there could be a little bit of shifting. I think we know the teams. You're right. There could be a couple of spots that move or opponents change. But yeah, there's a lot locked in, honestly.
Well, as it relates to the Broncos, you and I got to react right after the shootout with the Browns on Monday Night Football. And I think we kind of collectively, along with a lot of others, categorized the win as ugly but good. Sometimes you got to win dirty, and it's not all going to break your way. And I think they did that. Well, I think it's fair to speculate that you kind of had a similar vibe this weekend, albeit a little bit less ugly. Or a little bit more ugly, I should say.
I was about to say, I think this was uglier.
Yeah, a little bit more ugly, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So, James, did you walk away feeling any differently after this game that you did kind of against Cleveland as it relates to the Broncos?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an issue on offense. I think there's an issue running the football on offense. I also think, and this might be the scary part, I think they know they can't run the ball, Richie. Like, I think they do. They've tried these rotations. They've tried to figure out which back might work against which defense and which scheme would work that week. And the more I see like Marvin Mims being incorporated into the run game, I'm going, we're trying to find ways to run the football. The more and I actually think he's a better player, but Marvin Mims in my mind is starting to become like McCole Hardman. Like, how do we get him the football in a variety of ways? And I'm talking about McCole back when like it was Tyreek Hill in Kansas City and Travis Kelce, and it was like he's not running a ton of routes downfield, and Marvin's better, I think, in that range. But it's like, can we just get it out to him like a quick ball to the sideline and let him make something happen? Can we bring him on a sweep and have it get in his hands and make something happen? Like, different ways to try to get some sense of run game going. You know what I mean? Whether that is a short screen game, whether that is finding different backs. I think, like, as much as Sean keeps saying, like, we got to run the ball better, he said it coming out of halftime. And
I was just going to say that.
I mean, so, like, I think, to me, that's him going, I know we got to run the ball better.
Right.
I don't think we can.
Right.
And Bo's going to have to do a lot. And I think what's happening and what we're seeing is you're putting a lot on your rookie quarterback. Now, I think Sean understands that. I think Bo gets that. But are there going to be some poor decisions? Yeah. But they're putting more on Bo. So then there's more to handle. Then you hope, I can't remember if you and I talked about this, but I think that happens with ebbs and flows of a quarterback. It happened, per example, I was talking to Zach and Phil about this on Monday night. Like, remember Jordan Love during training camp in the joint practices against the Broncos?
Yes.
Do you remember how that looked?
Yeah, he looked rough. He threw some interceptions. He was,
Do you know what they were doing? They were just testing everything.
Yeah.
They were telling Jordan, take chances.
Yep.
Go, we want you to do this. Matt LaFleur's putting more and more on him at the line of scrimmage. They want him to literally very quickly start running the entire 2-minute himself from the line of scrimmage, back what they used to do with Aaron Rodgers. This is why Matt's a good coach. But there's been some rough spots, right? In the beginning of the season, too, for Love. He was turning the ball over. What are they doing now? Like, playing outstanding. And so I think the growth that you have when you're putting more on your quarterback and what they need to handle is it's not all going to go like this, right? It's going to be like, oh, it's great. Oh, boy. But the Broncos are lucky enough to win both these games while that's happening.
They were, and you're to your point about Jordan Love and kind of the work through process that you have to go through these quarterbacks. You'll know as much as any. It was not uncommon during the Peyton Manning years, which were 4 of the best offensive years, especially consecutively, that we've seen in Broncos history. Peyton threw a lot of interceptions in practice because he was trying things, he was working different angles, he was workshopping different defensive scenarios and schemes so that he would be ready to not throw one in the game. And I think that we've been fooled by that in the reverse with guys like Case Keenum and Joe Flacco, who seem to never turn the ball over during practice. And then you'd go out there.
Wasn't that was Bo a little bit? I mean, there were not turnovers, but now we're seeing him get some tight window throws, right? He's completing some tight window balls. So you start taking another chance again, with a ball or two.
I have been of the mind, I said this yesterday, and I've kind of been carrying it throughout the last couple of weeks, that I feel more confident with Bo and Sean's kind of connection and the thing that they've built in terms of rapport, that Bo is not, these mistakes are not wasted in a sense of we're not looking at a potential, hopefully not a Groundhog Day situation where it's the same thing over and over again, because I feel like Bo, who's had a lot thrown on him for the 6th quarterback taken off the board in the first round, he's had a lot more put on his plate than even some of his peers who were drafted ahead of him have when you look at the team and what was around him. And I feel confident that they're going to be able to build and grow from that. It's more of a sense of, do they have enough time left between with what's at stake at the rest of the regular season and the propensity to the playoffs? So they have enough time to iron all these kinks out. As it relates to the run game, Jaleel McLaughlin was a DMP yesterday with his quad injury. What, if anything, have you heard about Jaleel's status heading into a short week here with a very important game on the line?
Yeah, because you're not going to do much this week at all. Everything's an estimation in a sense, or a walkthrough. That's why I do think Pat's full participant, take it what you want, yesterday is a good sign for him in the ankle. A full DNP is a little rough, I think, in a short week. Any sort of quad contusion or whatever it is that he's dealing with, I don't love, in all honesty. Everybody's gotten run in that backfield. If you're shortchanged, everybody's gotten carries. I think that plays into it a little bit. But he's probably been your most explosive and effective back of late, for sure. I mean, I would think you'll just find, like we said earlier, you're just going to find other ways to create the essence of a run game that you need to find a way if he can't go. And I think you'll just try to be more creative with how you do it. This is a really weird thing, right? Because if you look at the guys who were brought in by Sean Payton and highly paid on that offensive line, they're known for what, Richie? They're known as run blockers.
Yeah.
And they actually are pass prone pretty well.
Yeah.
It's just it's like Bizarro Jerry world. It's in the opposite realm. But I don't think that helps. Luckily, the other team can't run the ball for crap anyways right now either.
And I think the problem that, and you alluded to it with the Broncos, is that I do think Sean Payton knows they have to run the ball, but I think he also knows that the thing that they have to do, they just can't seem to be able to do it to the degree that they need to. And so in the spirit of being more creative, right? Because there's only so many joker packages you can try to throw in with Marvin Mims and jet sweeps and, things like that. And inherently running the football is turning around, handing the ball off, or I guess maybe using a screen game as an extension of the running game. I think there was an over-reliance on this early in the year, and we've seen less of it Do you think maybe in the spirit of creativity that Sean Payton should explore maybe more designed quarterback runs with Bo, who has led the team in rushing on several occasions already this year?
Yeah, it's funny when you were saying that. That's the thing that was going into my mind before you even got to should he do more designed runs with Bo. I think there could be the situation where it's like, hey, Bo, on this play, it's literally like it's Cortland's your read, and if it's not there, you're gonna run for 4, like in slide. And like he did that a lot with Russ at the end of last season. It was like, take a look here, and if it's not there, I want you to run up the middle for 5 yards and slide. Remember that? That was a lot of the back end of last year. Now, you hate to live that way because that was a product of what Sean thought Russ could do, Russ's limitations in terms of progressions, in terms of seeing certain things, and that was why they did that. But you could find a way to implement that run part of it in a different manner. Bo, look at these 2 progressions, and we're going to scheme it up to where there's a decent chance you might have this outlet to use your legs. He's a really good athlete. Like, he really is. And what he has seemed to be, I'm curious for your opinion too, is like, I don't fear him getting injured when he's out running. Like, I don't want to jinx him or anything, but like, he does seem to have a very good knack for knowing when to get down, finding a way to get down, doing it before potential contact can come. He doesn't seem to put himself really in that much of harm's way when he does carry the football.
Yeah, outside of 1 or 2, I could think of 1 or 2 occasions, especially as it got down near the goal line, where I think he really just a little more he threw his big frame in there, and I was like, "Ooh, okay," like, hang on. But no, by and large, I think you're right. I think he's a athletic, mobile guy, and he's savvy enough with his movements to be able to time a slide, or if he's going to fall forward in a way that gets him out of harm's way. So
at the ankles.
Yes, I brought it up, the concept of more running with Bo, because I'm in favor for it. I think that you need to, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that kind of feels like what we're at with the run game. And while I acknowledge that I think at times the Broncos have bailed or failed to engage in it enough. You brought up the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think is a perfect example of this, because they can't run the ball right now. They're like dead last in yards per attempt, but they're top 3 in attempts. So they know that it's inefficient, but they're going to keep pounding away at it.
Yeah.
And it's worked by and large. They have found ways to make it work by and large enough for them. I think the Broncos have done that to a slightly lesser degree, but you've got a dynamic athlete in Bo, and it sounds crazy to be like, hey, we're putting a lot on this rookie quarterback's back. Okay, now let's have him basically spearhead the run game as well as the pass game. But this is kind of where you're at. With Russell Wilson, Sean Payton did some of those things as a byproduct of the limitations with the middle of the field and maximizing the skill set that he had. I think you're doing the same thing here. So it's a force of circumstance in both cases, just for slightly different reasons.
That's exactly the way to put it. The best way to say it is this. You did it with Russ because of the way the quarterback was limited. You could do it with Bo because of the way the offense is limited. And Bo's aiding your offense that is limited in a certain capacity. Because I mean, like, dude, it's like an every Monday night I'm on the horn, and I'm on the station, and Phil's yelling at me. He's like, James, what's wrong with the run game? And I'm like, I can't they can't fix it. How am I gonna fix it from the press box? It is an issue. And I think by week, we're on to week 16 now, your identity's been established on who you are as a team. Which is why the Philadelphia thing was such a big deal, right? We knew they had the talent to do it. Can they do it? We see now that they can. But everybody's identity is pretty established by now. And I don't think they're a team that can run the ball effectively and consistently.
No, I heard Terrell Davis say it with Schlereth and Stokely and Mike Evans in the morning. And he has forgotten more about running the football than you or I or plenty of other people watching will ever learn. He said essentially that he's never seen in his career a team that runs the football as poorly as the Broncos, or frankly anything, whether it's passing or whatever the deficiency is. He's never seen a team have a deficiency for 3.5 months of a football season and then suddenly just figure it out.
Exactly.
So you kind of this cake has been baked. You just got to find the best way to cut your slices at this point. And that may mean that, like, hey, especially if Jaleel is struggling more than we think, and he's an iffy go for this Thursday, maybe it's Blake Watson time, and he can give you kind of some juice and some spark that we haven't seen because he hasn't really gotten any run for most of this year. It seems like Estime is continuing to kind of earn those late fourth quarter carries, the closer kind of carries, and Javante's role is kind of settled in as that he's a pass
pro guy.
He's a pass pro guy, and
he's actually far better at it than the other guys.
Yeah, and that is an important role. I just feel like it adds another when you have, three guys that are all earmarked for one specific thing. It becomes a tell for NFL defenses who are, who get paid a lot of money and are pretty smart too, that, hey, if Javante's going out there and it's 3rd and 4 or longer, it's a pass, because they don't have the juice to pick up those yards.
Yep.
All right. Well, since I'm not going to get to talk to you before the next game, why don't we close out our Broncos conversation here with a little bit of prediction for Thursday? How are you feeling about this pivotal AFC West matchup coming up in a couple days?
Yeah, I just saw the Chargers in Kansas City 2 weeks ago. The Doink wins it for Kansas City, but it was a typical Justin Herbert performance that Broncos fans are probably well aware of as well. I think even as a Broncos fan, you got to like him as a guy and like him as a player. He's tough as hell, and he was out there with nobody to throw the ball to, getting drilled repeatedly and making plays against the Kansas City defense. It's pretty good. He'll have Ladd McConkey back for this game. I think Ladd is outstanding. Most of the people I've talked to around the league think in terms of these rookie pass catchers, it's 1, Brock Bowers by a mile, and number 2 is Ladd McConkey. Even with Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. probably could maybe be right up there with Ladd. He's having a great year. Most teams that I've talked to are like, Ladd McConkey's been outstanding. There's been an interesting comp to him. It's like Emmanuel Sanders. Now, maybe he needs to get the toughness that Emmanuel Sanders has, which was pretty rare for a guy his size. Just unbelievable toughness. But the comp is in and out of breaks. The footwork, the route running is outstanding. But they can't run the ball at all right now. Ever since J.K. Dobbins went down, that has been their staple, their identity. So they were forced to go through an identity change as we talk about this back end of the season after what ended up happening to Dobbins. The mobility of Herbert is something that everybody should keep an eye on Thursday. My understanding, the ankle is definitely bothering him. It's definitely impacting his ability to get away from the rush. And we know what type of pass rush the Broncos can have. I think that's going to be a big part of this. I think they can keep getting after him. I do think they're going to hit him. I do think that's going to impact the Chargers offense that is like really hit or miss at times. It really is. And so you got to contain Ladd and you'll hit, Herbert. I think you're in a decent spot defensively. I really do. Now with Jesse Minter and what that group brings, they just got boat raced. By Baker Mayfield last week. And just embarrassed by one of my favorite players in the league, in Mike Evans, who was just unguardable in that game. But I think they are a good defense. Here's an interesting stat. I got to say this. I just have to get this out because I put this out on social media, and I thought it was interesting. So the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Eagles, have all given up 247 points this year. So exactly. So they're all giving up 17.6 points a game. So then I was looking at how many defensive points has each defense earned, right? In terms of points that they've scored as a unit. The Eagles have scored, Richie, 0 points this year. No pick sixes, no fumble returns, no safeties. The Chargers have scored 1 pick six for 7 points. Do you know how many points the Broncos defense has scored themselves this year?
Oh, gosh. Well, Benito's had 2 in the last 2 weeks, plus Pat Surtain's against the, 40.
Wow, you're close. 39 points.
Wow.
39 points. 2 safeties. Well, we're going to say the PATs, they count.
You're getting 7 for the touchdown. Yeah,
exactly. The same thing as you would say that as offensive points, right? It's the same thing.
Sure.
So 3 pick sixes. And 2 fumble returns, because 1 for Benito's a fumble return, returns, and 2 safeties. 39 points as a defense. That's part of what's happened over these last couple weeks, that you've been able to survive these games. Is that sustainable? Not really, to score like that. But I just think it's been a really interesting nugget, as in how this team has found ways to win in all 3 phases. And I think that's the feather in their cap heading into the postseason, Denver's. that they can get points in all three phases, and they can flip the field, and they can do all these different things. The Chargers have been so hit or miss with their units. It's been interesting to see.
Well, I'm certainly fascinated to see how it turns out. I think that, unless Kansas City is firing on all cylinders, I think that this game on Thursday might be one of, if not the toughest games you have left on the calendar, because the Bengals, as good as they are offensively, have a lot of problems defensively, and the Chiefs may not be playing for much by the time you get to them. So I think that this is a big identity check for the Broncos, who, as you mentioned, have had to kind of fight and claw in different ways and different phases to kind of put this season together, which by and large blows. Yeah, but blows every expectation preseason that was given to them locally, frankly, and nationally out of the water. So I don't know. I think Pat Surtain being able to play will be huge. I think that Nick Bonito is going to have a Defensive Player of the Year winning season without probably winning it, because TJ Watt.
This? The last player, you mentioned TJ Watt, the last player to have 2 defensive touchdowns and double-digit sacks was
JJ.
There we go. 2014, when he won Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah,
I just think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that TJ Watt statistically is having not one of his best seasons from a statistical standpoint. So this award almost feels like an overcorrection for amazing statistical years when he didn't win it. You're almost kind of getting
he's got, what does he have, like 5 forced fumbles or something like that? 6
fumbles? Something like that.
He had 2 sacks and a forced fumble.
It feels like a larger example of like a guy who's, kind of on the back end of his career, gets the Pro Bowl nod, even if he doesn't statistically deserve it because of reputation. It kind of feels like TJ is slamming in that direction, and Pat Surtain, who statistically isn't helped by the position that he plays, is kind of in that running there as well.
I don't know. I know we're rounding this up, but I like to ask you. I don't know if Pat will ever win a Defensive Player of the Year. He'd certainly be deserving.
Yeah,
I would say he's deserving to be in the conversation this season and probably in the next several. But he's just never going to get any targets.
Yeah, I think he has like a 10.5% target share.
So it's so hard for him to make plays.
Yeah.
And if this is usually like a sack award. And
I think 8 of the last 9 have been edge rushers or defensive.
Last probably Gilmore, right? To not be an edge rusher. And so I just think, well, Aaron Donald isn't, but he's a pass rusher, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I said to Phil and Zach was this, and this is what I think. You need numbers, which Benito has them. And you need wow plays, like wow plays. He's made 2 wow plays. If he makes one on national TV on Thursday night when they're the only game going, I think that's a huge moment for Nick Bonito.
If he has 3 pick 6, fumble 6 type touchdown plays in 3 consecutive weeks, 2 of which are on national television standalone games, you can't make much more of a statement than that. We were having
those moments if you're
I mean we were basically having the discussion that Nick Bonito getting 3 sacks this Thursday on 3 big sacks or impactful plays against Justin Herbert on Thursday is more impactful than if he has 1 or 2 a game for the next 3 games.
Probably.
So yeah, I'm with you. I also think that we haven't. This is like the Nick Bonito coming out party. Just like Pat Surtain has already been introduced to the world, and people know of him now. Nobody was talking about Nick Bonito outside of the state of Colorado prior to this, and I think this year, this following year, and going forward, he will get a little bit more of a national lift because his name will be out there more. As we close out the show here, James, you want to do a little Overreaction Tuesday?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
I got so excited about this.
Okay. So I'm going to take the first one to Hotlanta, where we just saw them last night escape with a victory over a pretty downtrodden Raiders team, who's going to have a lot of moving and shaking to do going forward. But James, I think
Tom will save him, I guess.
We'll see. Even though they're sitting there right at 500 with a chance to theoretically make some moves toward that division, it's been kind of a struggling division for the last handful of years. I think by and large the Kirk Cousins experiment has underwhelmed thus far based on the preseason hype that was attached to it. And he's just been playing flat out bad. And I love Kirk as much as anybody else. That's my guy. But my first Overreaction Tuesday is that Kirk Cousins' seat at this point, with Michael Penix waiting in the wings, who they surprised everybody on draft night except for you, who had the news before everybody else. I think that the Falcons may move on from Kirk Cousins even before they're out in the contract after next year, if they have Michael Penix ready and waiting in the wings, and they think they can maximize this, given the contracts that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years with your Drake Londons, your Bijan Robinsons, your Darnell Moonies, etc.
This is not an overreaction. This is not a situation that you'd see other owners be very patient with. I don't think Arthur Blank, to my understanding, is going to be very patient with this. Now, what they do understand, Richie, is once you make this move, it's done. It's over for Kirk Cousins. Once you play Michael Penix, there's no going back to Kirk Cousins.
Right.
I mean, at his age, at his pridefulness, the way Kirk is wired, if you've ever been around him,
sure,
it's not just happening. So are they going to rush to put Penix on the field this season? I think they're trying to be patient with it, as patient as they possibly can. But if this season continues the way if he just keeps playing the exact same way he's been playing for the rest of the season, I would almost guarantee Michael Penix is starting for the Atlanta Falcons to start next season.
I am with you on that one.
Because he has beyond impressed in what I've been told. He has been outstanding in every way they could imagine. From the mental capacity to the physical ability to what they've seen, they are just over the moon over Michael Penix. But they're sticking the course. Raheem Morris is sticking the course with what they had planned, which was he's going to take over eventually for Kirk Cousins. This was never a quarterback battle by any sense. But if Kirk keeps playing this way, you're essentially eating one season, right? This was pretty much a 2-year deal in terms of the guarantees. So you're eating 2025. You'll see what Kirk wants to do. They've handled dead money before in the past, asked Arthur Smith. But yeah, I think if this continues, you're starting Michael Penix next season. I really do. I don't think the leash is much longer than this year, because also they had this division locked up several weeks ago, and now the Bucs are just flying by them.
Yep, I'm with you. I think that you have a responsibility as a front office and as an ownership group with the chips and the pieces that you've pushed into the center and the moves that you've made. And Kirk was kind of supposed to be the master control that was just going to make it all work with all these toys around you.
Move.
Yeah, you got to do something, especially when you're maximizing. You've got two major impact players in Bijan and Drake London on rookie deals still. And that's gonna go away, and you're gonna want to bring those guys back because they're the lifeblood of your offense.
I mean, isn't it telling? I'd like your opinion. Isn't it telling that, like, you look at the way they're playing these last several weeks? It's almost like they're playing so cautious to try to eliminate Kirk's opportunities to make a mistake. Like, it is complete reverse from the first half of the season. He's not airing it out. He's not. They're trying to, like, run the ball and get out of there with a win if they can. And that's just been really kind of, I'm not going to lie, depressing to watch.
I agree.
There's so much talent there.
I'll give you another depressing kind of thing that depressing for me, because I happen to enjoy this coach. I enjoy this team. And I think a lot of people here in Broncos country agree with me. And that's the San Francisco 49ers. And I just feel like year after year, the San Francisco 49ers trot out one of the more talented rosters in football. And while they haven't been able to lock down like a marquee franchise quarterback type of guy, they've seemed to been able, they being Kyle Shanahan and co, seem to have been able to maximize the output of a lot of unheralded or unexpected quarterbacks. I mean, Brock Purdy going from the bottom of the NFL draft to playing, for a Super Bowl, and being right there. And I think he's going to have a pretty big contract extension coming his way pretty soon without a 5th-year option. But it just feels like, whether it's the injury bug with Christian McCaffrey and others, or, star players kind of underperforming at times, whether it's Debo or George Kittle goes quiet for a while, or you got linebackers quitting at halftime of games, just unbelievable stuff. It just feels like Kyle Shanahan, to me, is cementing himself as the bridesmaid, never the bride, when it comes to the mountaintop of the NFL. And that is my Overreaction Tuesday statement, is that Kyle Shanahan will finish his tenure as the 49ers as the forever bridesmaid, and the 49ers will not find a way to win a Super Bowl as the rest of the conference around them seems to elevate.
I'll say overreaction.
Okay.
I like this.
I hope you're right.
And it's for a few reasons. One, this season was just what they went through in the Super Bowl and coming so close once again to the exact same team, and to restart each year after coming so close. They thought they were the better team the year before in Philadelphia, and Brock Purdy gets hurt and they don't go to the Super Bowl. And it's like, we've had this Super Bowl window and we've been so close, and we've probably been the better team on the field some of these instances, and we haven't gotten it. It finally came to like an exhaustive head. Usually what happens is you're the Lions, right? You come so close. Detroit thought they should have been in it. And then you come into this rejuvenated season and you go crazy like Detroit has. It's like so many years in a row, theirs was just like the exhaustive start. But then I add in, your Super Bowl window is essentially closed with this group. Let's be honest, with this same group. And it oftentimes falls apart unless you make a drastic move like Kansas City did with Brett Veach, going, you know what, we're going to trade away Tyreek Hill and we're going to regroup before he starts slowing down. So you didn't see Tyreek, and he's still playing well in Miami, but Debo does not seem like the same type of player.
Nope.
George is still, I think, a really, really good player. You lose, the injuries are crazy too. Ayuk was like, you finally pay him, and Trent hasn't played, and you got injuries on defense as well, and McCaffrey just never gets going, and the season never gets going. But I think you also have to throw in like Ricky Pearsall's shot at the start of the season. Travarius Ward's daughter tragically passes away before the age of 2. Trent Williams and his wife have a stillborn child. Like, they're dealing with so much off the field as a team that just, I think, compounded everything else they were dealing with. And it just they collapsed. To use my buddy Mike Silver's, term from his article in The Athletic about them, was they collapsed because of the weight of themselves on themselves. And
I like that.
I think that's really fitting. Now, for Kyle, my perfect example would be Andy Reid. This is what we said about Andy Reid for an eternity. He's never going to get there. I'm an Eagles fan. I grew up in Philly. He went to 4 straight NFC title games. You know what I mean? Things fall apart there. And now look at him. Like, he's got 3 Super Bowl titles to him. Does Kyle still have that in him? I think so. I think he does. Does it happen in San Francisco? We'll see. But but these rumors of him like leaving there were so asinine and insane.
Yeah.
Like, the best term I heard from a GM was this. It was like, if they part ways with Kyle Shanahan, he will have a job before he gets to his car in the parking lot.
I would say that comfortably there's 25, 26 NFL teams that would take Kyle Shanahan over their current head coach like right 100%. Now. It's not even, So I say that, acknowledging that, it just feels like they're just snake bitten in one way or another, whether it's injuries, untimely. They've got, like you said, I like the almost like collapsing of a star. They just everything kind of just falls internally. All right. The last one I got for you, you mentioned the Lions a little bit earlier, and that's kind of ties into my last one, which is we've had conversations. I think one of my last Overreaction Tuesdays was the Bills and the Lions are going to meet each other in the Super Bowl as 2 of the best teams in their conference and all that. The last few weeks since we've talked about that, clearly offensively, very little has changed in terms of the perception of both of those teams. They can run up the score against anybody almost any time. But defensively, I think that both teams have shown some massive concerns. The Lions, from an injury standpoint, they just don't have anybody left to trot out there. And I know Dan Campbell goes on the ticket in Detroit and is like, we'll play anybody, anytime, anywhere. We'll throw guys out there. And I don't care if we give up 700 yards a game. We just got to win by 1 point, which for them might actually work.
Yeah.
And the Bills love him. The Bills, it hasn't been so much injury related as the Lions. They just seem to have just given up massive chunks of points. I mean, 40, 50 points between the Rams game, the Lions game, all these things, even though they went 1-1 in that scenario. My last Overreaction Tuesday is that I went from saying I think the Bills-Lions is going to be a Super Bowl rematch to I think the defensive limitations on both sides of the ball is going to keep both of these teams out of the Super Bowl. The Bills and the Lions, neither one makes the Super Bowl out of their conference.
I hate to say this because you got the Michigan State hat on. I think it's going to happen to one of them, and I think it's the Lions.
That's more likely.
You can make some corrections. The Bills have actually, over the last couple of weeks, gotten a little bit healthier on defense, and they lost a couple of guys on Sunday. But like you got Matt Milano back. Now he didn't finish the game on Sunday, but like he returned. I think the injuries on defense for Detroit are just almost insurmountable. Like it's so catastrophic what has happened to that defense. It's just and two more on Sunday that are done.
Yeah,
for the year.
Not to mention you lost Knuckles.
You lost Knuckles. You lost my fantasy running back. David
Me
Montgomery.
too. Me too.
And I'm in the midst, by the way, of nobody likes to hear about anybody's fantasy team, but I'm in the midst of have you ever played playoffs where there are 2 combined weeks of?
Yes, and I hate it. It's a travesty.
That's what I'm in
a
now.
travesty.
I won it, and now I got to play the guy again.
No.
Yeah. And so anyway, I think with Buffalo, you can't give up 86 points in 2 weeks.
No.
You can't do that. But they've turned the ball over like crazy. They got a plus 18. I love that I got all this on the top of my head. Look at me go. They got a plus 18 turnover differential.
To the Stars.
Best in football. They have a turnover in every single game except the Rams game. So like when they don't make those clutch plays, I'm worried. But they have made them pretty consistently. They're good against the run. They really are. They even though the game played out the way it played out and the Lions had to abandon the run, they're good against the run. So what does that tell me? That tells me teams are not going to be able to stay on the field and keep Josh Allen off the field if they can keep stopping the run the way they're doing that. So Josh Allen's still going to be able to come on and put his cape on and do it. I just don't see anybody, like, let's go down the list since this is our last one. Go down the list and be like, are you concerned about the Texans versus the Bills? Probably
no.
Not. Are you concerned about the Steelers versus the Bills? Probably not.
No.
Are you concerned, honestly, about the Chiefs' offense staying up with you if you're the Bills? Probably
No.
not right now.
No,
you're not. I think there's one team in the AFC that's a challenge to the Bills.
Baltimore. Yep.
I think Baltimore's offense could put up these number of points on this.
When Lamar and Derrick Henry are both firing on all cylinders, I don't know how you're expected to slow that down for more than a quarter or two.
Exactly. And it's the same way as like if Stafford's got that Stafford zone that he gets to in the fourth quarter and he plays like that for a whole game like he did against the Bills, and you got Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and you play that zone defense that the Bills have, they'll destroy you. I don't think there's anybody in the AFC that can play offensive football the way the Rams and the Lions are right now outside of Baltimore. So I do think the Bills still have a chance to get in there. And I think the nervous part would be, I'm mentioning teams that can put up points in the NFC. The Rams, if they go play this injury-riddled team, that's tough. The Packers play them, that's tough. The Vikings play them, that's tough. The Eagles, all these teams in the NFC that we're looking at, hell, the Bucks, they can put up points, like really can put up points. So that's why I think there's a greater chance of the Bills making it. I'm sorry, Richie, than the Lions. As much as like I want the Lions,
me too,
to get there so badly.
They're just such a fun story and everything about them. Yeah,
they're great. And there's so many likable guys on that team. Amon-Ra St. Brown, like I don't know if people in Denver know this. I'll just say a couple of these things. One of the best humans in this league. Jared Goff's just a great guy. I remember covering David Montgomery's pro day at Iowa State. Like, good dude. Like, they got a lot of really great guys, and it's a great team. And you get nervous because there's a chance the coordinators may not be back. And then you're restarting, which I think there's a better chance of Ben Johnson staying than people think. I really do.
Well, listen, I think that Detroit fans and all that are going to be thankful for every week that they get to continue to have Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn out there, two of the hotter coordinators in the league that thus far have decided to stay home and keep this thing going in Detroit.
Have you talked to people about getting a collection plate around the city to keep Ben Johnson in town?
No, but that's a good point. That's a good point. 'Tis the season, right? It's giving time. And so, yeah, I'm going to work on that because I think
Ben
that
3.5 to stay as an OC. Let's go.
It gives me a lot more fun things to watch for outside of my Denver Broncos when I've got teams like the Lions and other fun stories. James, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you out there for listening, hanging out. I love your comments down in the bottom there. Give us. Yeah, you can see it if you'll be able to see them on the screen. They come like right there.
I should leave these up. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start looking at these comments and referencing them.
Love it. Well, that's a perfect tease to next week and beyond. We'll get a little. Maybe we'll do a little AMA with James Palmer here on Coffee Break. So give us a follow on social media at Denver Sportscom. Follow us, like, and subscribe on YouTube. So much great content from all of our digital and Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan hosts right at your fingertips, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we'll get into it with you tomorrow.